In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make a zombie survival game in Fortnite that has a progressive difficulty system, unlockable door system, and a wall gun mechanic that allows you to buy guns, ammo, and meds. To find all the content used in this video, you can click on the first link in the description, and you'll be able to download all of the verse files completely for free. So once you're in the project, the first thing you want to do is hit verse explorer, and create a new verse file. You want to name this verse file the same thing as the file that you can find in the content folder. So this first one, I'm going to name it day_manager. And hit create empty. Okay, now you want to open this up by either double clicking on it or hitting verse. Find the day manager and copy everything from the verse file in the content folder into this new verse file that you just created. Once you have this copied over, go and do the exact same thing for your other two verse files. As you can see, I went ahead and did this for both the door manager and the wall Buyable. If you're using the premium version, you want to do this for all of the different verse files that are provided. As you can see, I went ahead and did this, so now I have the day manager, wall Buyable, and door manager. With all of these created, you can now close out of your verse, and you want to hit verse, build verse code, and you'll have in your content browser all three of these verse devices that you just created. So I'm going to go ahead and drag all three of these devices into the play space, and then I'm going to start filling out the day manager first. So the very first setting that we have in the day manager is the tracker for all. This is a tracker device that you can find by just searching tracker. In this device, you want to change a couple of things. The first is stat to track. Change this to events. The target value and starting value does not matter. What this tracker does is it will apply to all of your players, and it will let the players know how many zombies are left to progress to the next day. One thing I do want to mention is in the verse code, if you go into your day manager, you can find under the next day function a text for each day. This is what the text for your tracker will be. It already has a base text here, but if you want to change it, this is where you do so. Though to have this tracker work properly, you do need to set a text in the tracker title. I would recommend having this be the same thing as in your verse code, except for the very first day. So I'll just day 1 zombies left. If you want this tracker to start immediately, make sure to keep assign on game start on, as well as assignment joining in progress. Although oftentimes if you want to have a start cinematic or something for your zombies game, you don't want this tracker to instantly assign, which is why in the code for the day manager, there is a enable first spawners function. What this will do is enable the very first creature spawners, as well as assign this tracker to every single player. So you can call this function whenever you want to actually start spawning the zombies and begin the day cycle. But for now, because a cinematic or a game start script isn't included in the free version, I'm just going to keep assign on game start and assignment joining in progress enabled. Next, you want to change the sharing option to all. The show on HUD setting, you can keep as both, or you can just change it to the list version. Either one is okay. What this will do is just show the tracker twice on your HUD rather than just once. I'd recommend changing the show progress setting to remaining. And then there's some more settings like the icon or the color that you're free to change at your own will. Because the last thing I want to do is just rename this to main day tracker. Doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to select this in my day manager. The next setting is called all spawners. We're going to skip this for now and come back to this later whenever we're sorting out our levels. But for now, we can move on to the give gold device. This is going to be an item granter that will give the player gold on every single zombie elimination. So you want to find a item granter, and here change the on grant action to keep all. And then in the item list, here you want to add a gold or whatever currency you're using. And then you can change the item quantity to how much gold you want it to award the player for every zombie elimination. I'm just going to set this to something like 75 for now. That's it for the settings. I'm just going to rename this to zombie gold granter. and select it in my day manager. The next setting is a HUD message device. This setting is going to display whenever a new day is beginning. So it'll let the player know which day they're on, and it'll show in between each day sequence whenever you have a pause between the zombie spawning. So here I'm going to keep the message recipient to all. You can change the display time and the sound, the position, as well as the animations and text color. As for the message, if you go into the day manager code again, you'll see here in the pause between function, it says set HUD text for each day to whatever is in this value. So here, if you want to like change the message, this is what you'll change. I'm just gonna leave it the same and go back into our HUD message device. There's really no other settings that I need to change for now. So I'm going to rename this to display day message and select this in my day manager. The next setting, the reviver, is a down but not out device. It is used to revive all of the players that are downed at the end of every single day. In this device, you want to change these settings. Change down but not out to yes. You can interfere with the tenacity rate all you like, but I'm just going to keep it default. I would recommend turning off shakedowns. And then some of the other settings you can also change, like the time to revive and things like that, but none of them are required. So I'm just going to rename this to revive device. And I'm going to select this here as the reviver. The next device is our day pause timer. This is a timer device that is going to be used to show to the player how long they have in between each day to kind of relax. In this device, the first thing you want to change is the duration. So this can be up to you. It's kind of how long the player will have in between waves, whether to go and buy ammo or buy guns, get a mystery box, anything like that. I'm just going to set this to like, let's say 7 seconds in between waves. Next, you want to change the completion behavior to reset. I'm going to change the display time in to seconds only, and I'm also going to change the timer running text to whatever you'd like. I'm just going to have it something like next day starts in, and that's it for this timer device. I'm just going to name this wave timer and select this here. We're going to move past levels for now and come back to that at the end. So the next two settings are Day XP and Zombie XP. Both of these are accolades device that do exactly as they say. The Day XP will be awarded to players every single time they survive for a day, and the Zombie XP will be rewarded to players every single time that they eliminate a zombie. So for the Day XP, I'm just going to say survive a day, and I'm going to change the XP reward to small, rename this to Day XP, and I'm going to duplicate this, change it to eliminate a zombie. Because you'll be doing this a lot more, I'm going to change the XP reward to very small, and I'm going to rename it to Zombie XP, and then select both of these in the game manager. So now with both of those settings filled out, we can move on to our levels and all spawners arrays. So our levels array is going to be used to make a progressive difficulty system so that the zombies get more difficult as the day count increases. So the first thing I'm going to do is add an element to the levels array. And in this element, I'll have an array of creature spawners. So let's find some creature spawners and drag it into the play space. So this is where it gets a little bit complicated because you end up having to keep track of a lot of different creature spawners that do a lot of different things. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to actually stay organized when you're creating all of your creature spawners. The first thing I'm going to do is actually just create a new folder for all of my zombie spawners. And now for every single difficulty of zombie spawners or level in our day manager array, I'm going to create a new folder in this zombie spawners folder. I'll just have a level 1, and I'll create another one for level 2, and another one for level 3. So in your zombie map, you're going to have different locations for different creature spawners. Before we create new creature spawners, let's first change the settings of this initial spawner. So the first setting is spawner type. You can leave this the same, it doesn't matter. The next is your creature type. Here you have lots of different settings for creatures. If you want to change the properties of each of these creatures, what you can do is actually place down a creature manager, select what type of creature you want to interfere with, and then change the attributes of that creature. But at first, I'm going to change this creature type to Fiend. The next setting is the number of creatures. This is how many creatures it will spawn at a time. Next is the activation range, which is how close you have to be to the spawner for the creatures to actually spawn. After that is the max spawn distance, which will be how far the creatures can actually spawn from the spawner. We have settings like spawn through walls, which I'm going to disable, and restore player shield on elimination, which I'm also going to disable. The next two somewhat important settings are the wave timer. This is how long it takes in between zombie spawns, as well as the despawn range, which is pretty self-explanatory. A setting you do need to change for sure is the invincible spawner. You want to enable this, and I'm also going to disable spawner visibility, as well as damage spawner after spawn, and spawn effects visibility, and damage structures at spawn location. The last few settings you can change are the preferred spawn location. You can have it spawn randomly or only at the max distance. I'm also going to disable the enabled at game start setting and disable the ambient sounds. So with the settings that you want, you then want to make a layout of where you want zombie spawners to be throughout your map. So for example, I'm going to want, a zombie spawner here, a zombie spawner over here, a zombie spawner over here. And keep in mind that all of these zombie spawners are still going to be your level 1 zombie spawners. They're all going to be your starting difficulty. So once you have the layout of all of your zombie spawners, you then want to, first, I'm going to drag them all and move them into level 1. And then I'm going to rename them. So I'm going to change these zombie spawners to level 1, spawner 1. Change this one to level 1, spawner 2. This one to level 1, spawner 3. So once you have all of these laid out and renamed, I'm going to select all of these and duplicate them for my next level of difficulty. So what I'll do is I'll duplicate all of them. For now, I move them straight up, so it'll be easier to recombine them at the end. So I'm going to move all 3 of these spawners into my level 2 folder, and I'm going to change the names of these to level 2 spawner, not 4, but 1. The reason I'm doing this is because it's at the spawn location 1, but it's for my level 2. So I'll do the same for all of these. Spawner 6 is going to be in the spawner 3 location, but for level 2. And then the same thing for spawner 2. So with these new level spawners created, I'm going to select all 3, and you can change the settings of these. So the most important is to actually progress the difficulty. What you can do is change the creature type. So I'm going to change this to, instead of Fiend, to Ice Fiend, for example. And now if I go over here and I create a new creature manager, and instead of Fiend, I'll have Ice Fiend, I can now have the new level of creature spawners have, a different health, a different amount of damage they do, and different movement speed. So through this strategy, we're able to increase the difficulty as the days progress. So with all of your levels created, you then want to go back into your day manager and actually select them. So for our first level, in our spawners, we want to select all of our level 1 spawners. And then in our next level, we're going to create a new level, and we're going to add all of our level 2 spawners. Once you have all of your levels created, you can go into your all spawners array, and this is going to be an array of every single spawner that you have in your entire map that you're planning to use. So just go through every single one of your spawners and select them here. You may be asking, when does it have the levels actually switch over? So to change this, you can go into the day manager verse file, and you can find under the next day function, you have a list here of day IDXs. On every single one of these days, the level will be changed. Do note that the day IDX will be one before the day where it'll actually change. So for example, as this is 9 and then 19 and 29, the level will change at the end of day 10. So for example, if you want to make a lot more levels and have it change every 5 days rather than every 10, you change this to 4 and then 9 and then 14 and so on. So to test this, I'm just going to change the day IDX to 2 and close out of the verse. I'm not going to hit verse build verse code and test this out. So in the game, you can see we have a tracker that says how many zombies we have left to kill for the day. So if we complete this tracker and actually eliminate all of the zombies, it will show the next day in the new goal, which will be 1 more kill than the previous day. Whenever we complete wave 3, the next wave, as you can see, it has the ice zombies because it's the new level. That pretty much sums it up though for the day manager. And we can now move on to filling out our door manager. So in the door manager, we have 3 settings. I'm going to skip doors for now and just fill out the other 2. The buy sound is the sound that will play whenever you actually purchase a door. So this is an audio player device. In this, the only thing that you need to change is the play location to instigating player and can be heard by instigator only. Other than that, you're going to want to change the audio to an audio you import. I'm just going to rename this to by door sound and select it in the door manager. The next thing is the failure HUD. This is a HUD message device that will show to a player whenever they try to purchase a door but don't actually have enough gold. And this, you want to change the message recipient to triggering player. And then all the other settings you can change yourself. The only thing I'm going to do here is change the message to not enough gold. And then change the name of the device to failure message. And select this here in the door manager. So now we have an array of doors. What this is an array that will allow people to purchase doors, buy gold, and make any of the props that you select in the door become invisible. And it also has a couple of other features. So let's add our first element. And the first setting that we have in this door is a conditional button device. This is going to be used to check if the player actually has enough gold. So I'm just going to change the key item 1 to gold. And then I'm going to change the key items required to however much gold that you want this door to cost. So I'm just going to change this to something like 1200. And then I'm going to rename this to door 1 conditional and select it here in our first doors conditional setting. The next is the item remover. This is going to be a item remover device that actually removes the gold from the player. So in this, the only thing that you need to change is the item list. Select this to gold and then change the item quantity to the same amount as the conditional that you're going to pair it with, just to 1200. And I'm going to select this as our item remover. Also did forget, I should change this to door 1 remover. The next setting is a button device. This is a button that will actually be used to open the door. So in this button, I'm going to, actually the first thing I'm going to do is just remove the conditional and the remover out of the way, and then move this button over to the side. In this button device, I'm going to change the text to something like by door, and change visibility during game to off, but increase the action radius. Now I'm going to change the name to door 1 button and select it in my button array. The next setting is an array of props that you can hide. So I'm just going to find some props that are going to act as my door. So I'm just going to put like a crate or 2 down. Make sure that your button is on top of these props. Now that I have all of my props, I would recommend renaming them all to door 1 prop 1, door 1 prop 2, and door 1 prop 3, and so on. Now back in the array, I can add elements to this items to hide and select all 3 of these. The items to show is the same thing as an array of props, but instead it will show props. So here I'm just going to create a prop off to the side to be able to showcase that and add it into the items to show. The next setting is a barrier device that is going to be used to actually block players from getting through the door. So I'm going to drag this over where I want to block the player, and I'm going to change the barrier material, hit clear so it's clear, change the size to accurately cover my door. I would recommend with these devices, especially if you're having zombies spawn on both sides, to turn off block weapon fire. And then I'm going to rename this device Door 1 Barrier and select it. The last two settings, one is a cinematic device. This will play any cinematic that you put into it. So for example, if you don't want just the items to hide, you can have the items like, float into the sky or something like that. To do this, you just put a cinematic sequence device down, then create a cinematic by hitting right click, cinematics, level sequence, name it, whatever, Door 1 cinematic. Add your props into this cinematic, and then simply just create a quick sequence that will play. Once that's done, you just go back into your cinematic and select it. I'm going to rename this to Door 1 Cin and add it here in our Door 1 element. The last setting is a trigger device. It's going to trigger every single time the door is bought. So this can be used if you have some other prop or something that you want to activate. So for example, if you want like a car to spawn, you can just have it so that whenever the trigger is triggered, the car will enable. There isn't any settings you need to change in this. I mean, you can disable like visible in game and stuff, but you probably don't want this close to any of your players in the first place. So I'm just going to name this Door 1 Trigger and select it in my Door 1 element. And just like that, if we launch session, we'll now have a buyable door that'll cost 1,200 gold and hide all of the door as well as disabling the barrier. So now as you can see, we have a door here that if we buy, this is not enough gold. I made a button here that'll give me a bunch of gold. So if I actually get 1,200 and buy the door, it'll hide, trigger activates, prop show, everything's working correctly. Moving on, our very last device that is included in the free package is the Wall Buyable Manager. Here, our first setting is the not enough money message. We can actually reuse our failure message from earlier for the door. Same thing with the buy sound. We're just going to reuse the sound that we made from the door. And then here we have an array of all wall buyables. So let's add an element and see what we have. First is a button that'll actually be used to try to purchase a wall buyable. Here you want to change the interaction text to whatever the wall buyable is actually going to be. So I'm just going to say like purchase assault rifle. And then I'm going to disable visible in game and increase the interaction radius. Then I'm going to just rename this to or say AR buyable button. And then I'm going to select this in this first array element. The next is a conditional button device, as well as we have a remover. So I'm actually just going to copy our Door 1's conditional and remover, and instead change the names to AR conditional and AR remover. These are going to do pretty much the exact same thing. The conditional is going to check for how much gold the player has. So we'll make this cost like 300 gold, for example. And the remover is actually going to remove this amount of gold. So let's go ahead and select this in our first index here. Our conditional is our AR conditional, and our remover is the AR remover. The very last setting here is the item granter that is actually going to be used to grant the item to the player. So like grant the assault rifle. Here I'm going to change the on grant action to keep all, and I'm going to add whatever assault rifle or whatever wall buyable you want. So I'm just going to find a basic assault rifle and add it here in the item list. The last thing I'm going to do is rename this to AR granter and then select it for this wall buyable element. So now for this button, I am going to just create a prop. You can either create a prop you can overlay the button with, or to save time, I'm just going to get a item placer, and I'm going to disable allow interact, add the assault rifle in the item list, and I'm just going to overlay this with the button. Obviously, this is only for the visual aspect of it. You don't need to use an item placer. You can use any prop, any image that you've imported, anything like that instead. But now if I go ahead and push changes, if I go over to this and hit purchase, I don't have enough gold. But if I go over here and get the 300 gold that's required, I can purchase the assault rifle and it'll require all of my gold. Okay, so that's everything that you need to know to create your very own zombie survival game. If you like this tutorial and want more in the future, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, if you have any ideas for future tutorials, make sure to leave those in the comments below. If you want to learn how to make a more complicated zombies game that has a lot more features like mystery boxes, pack-a-punches, first person, and more, check out the more complete package that should be the first link in the description below.